This is the Community Development Advisory Committee meeting, and we are having the only informational session that there will be for the block grant. We're having it this evening, and it's basically to help anybody who needs to get one-on-one or specific information about the grant, and for council members and committee members to better understand what the program is about. And the applications were first put out September 9th of 2024. They are due October 18th, no later than noon. It's a Friday. And then I think we'll quickly go through the application itself. And, you know, if any questions come up, feel free to ask them. Along with the application, in the back of it was the HUD matrix code and the national objectives. But what wasn't there, which I'll give you, once you determine what you think would be your national objective or your code, which is on this. This is where you want to look to see if it's really going to work.
Okay.
So these are actually I can't give you that one, that's mine. I can give this one. These are the actual definitions of what it is. So you might think that you fall within one thing, and then you look here and say, oh, well, that's not really what we mean, or that doesn't really qualify us. If you don't pick the right one and you choose to send your application in with, let's just see,
Content
the wrong
that's
one,
not related. Yeah.
it's not going to get any further than our desk, because you have to make sure that you have all your T's crossed, your I's dotted. So the best thing to do is when you think that you're ready, before you hand it in, give a call or contact us, and we can meet with you one-on-one to go over your application and say, no, we don't think this is the best suited for you.
You'll help us find the bucket.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
think that you should go here, because it's really not for us to decide where you are. We've had people who have insisted that they have like economic development, job growth. And I'm like, well, you have to produce jobs at the end of this. You have to show us that somebody got a job. And then when they were done, they were like, oh, that's not what we meant. Nobody got a job. It's like, well, that's an issue.
Uh-oh moment.
So that's why it's very important, because when we set this up in IDIS, which is HUD's integrated disbursement system, we have to put all the applications in your application, or all the information that's in your application, we have to upload that to HUD. So they too will look at something and say, huh, this doesn't make sense, or why would they have picked this? So, you know, we try to avoid any unnecessary questions or whatever by nipping it in the bud before it happens.
And you're only designating one of these. It's not like 2 or 3 categories.
Yeah, you can only pick one. So, like, youth services usually falls under, I think it's 05D. I gave it for one already. Tell you, would you like one of these?
So that's different from
Well-
this, because that's the narratives.
Yeah, so the back of it is on the application, which are these.
This.
Yes.
Okay.
But this I pulled up, I found on HUD, it's the actual definition, so that when somebody
Right,
goes here and says, oh, I think this is what I should be
Right.
choosing,
they have that referred to.
you go back here and you look at it and go, ooh, that's not really what it should be. And at the bottom, it was highlighted in yellow, just so you know that these are where you should be.
For Kingston's
Yeah.
purposes. Okay.
And it
Highlighted
kind of
in
follows
yellow.
along with the 5-year consolidated
Thank you so
plan
much, yes.
that the council had already passed.
Yeah.
So anytime you're working on your programming, just make sure that you're also looking at the 5-year consolidated plan that was passed, and it's on the city's website. So you can see what the priorities are for the city.
And that's the Kingston Forward 2025,
No, it's right under community development.
but the name of the
No, it's
comp
called
plan?
the community development 5-year consolidated plan.
Oh, the consolidated
Yeah.
plan, not the comp. Okay, good, thank you.
Okay, so, there are acknowledgements at the end of the application that you'll need to make sure that you have completed. Let's see. On the second page where it says important information to the process, it's in yellow. That's new for this year. Last year we had, some difficulties. Hi, are you here for the CDBG?
How are you? Yes, I am. My apologies.
Oh, you're fine. So last year, the committee, after looking at all of the applications that came in and kind of reviewing applications from the past, they wanted to see that some changes were made so that we were more in tune with the guidelines for HUD and to hold people more accountable. So our fiscal year is July 1st through June 30th. It's expected that your funding, that you receive it by July 1st, and you cannot start your program prior to July 1st because that's when our year starts. And if we don't have an agreement with HUD, you can't spend money because you're not going to get reimbursed for it. But timeliness is when the money is spent between July 1st and June 30th. And if we don't make timeliness, if the subrecipient doesn't make timeliness, the city themselves don't make timeliness. And if the city themselves don't make timeliness, you are reprimanded a little bit by HUD. So there are stages, first you get a warning and you get to the point where you have to go for special meetings and workshops. So we've been there, done that. But to not do that again. So I encourage everybody to spend your money as quickly as you can. And I realize that it's a little difficult because our funding year is July 1st through the 30th. Most people's is January through December. So you kind of have to plan accordingly. Because I also understand a lot of not-for-profits have different, I don't know, called buckets of funding. But there's timeframes in which you are really supposed to be able to spend your money by. And if you're already on the fast track of starting in January because you have to spend it by a certain time, you have to keep in mind that ours starts in July. So you're kind of on the same idea, but you know what I mean? And if you ever find that your activity can't be completed by June 30th, you do have a cutoff date where you need to contact us and say, look, can we look at an extension so that we can get this money spent? Because we also have the ability to say, okay, June 30th is here and you've only spent half your money and there's no way you're going to spend it before I have to report to HUD. So we're going to stop here and reallocate your funding to somebody else who can spend it. Not to say you couldn't reapply again, but it's just, we have to continually get the money out the door.
What do you mean by reallocate what's left over in your funding to another organization?
So to reallocate is if we've had, all right, so we've had activities that we have funded who at the end of the day said, we can't possibly get this done.
Right.
So we also can't just sit here with this money.
Right.
So we can either, depending on the amount that it is, we can either hand it over to another activity Or-
Another activity
that's already been approved.
that's already been approved.
Yes, it has to have already been approved.
Okay.
Or we have to go through the substantial amendment, which is a long process because I have to do a 30-day public hearing.
Mhm.
I have to do the substantial amendment. It has to be posted for 30 days. Then it has to have another 30-day public comment period. And then it goes to HUD for a 45-day review.
And then they also would, that recipient would then have, whoever the funding has been reallocated to has the same timeline. Okay, so they have an abbreviated timeline.
No, they still has to be, it still has to be done.
Right, but for their purposes, it's abbreviated because they're just getting reallocated, say, in the 6th month.
Our funding is still July 1st through June 30th.
Right.
The only way that would change is if the substantial amendment was not done until after our fiscal year was over.
Mhm.
And then it would start from whenever HUD approved in the next fiscal year.
So I understand what you're saying. They have to be ready to jump on it
Right.
and use the funds and in
Within that-
expedited amount of time if they've
Well,
been
if it's-
found out. with
Yeah,
reallocation.
if it's a substantial amendment, I mean, we're looking at a 90-day period anyway. So we would probably wait until after June 30th to do the substantial amendment.
I see.
Because let's just say you got $40,000 and you decided you couldn't spend it, but you didn't tell me until
Right.
May.
Right.
Well, the chances are somebody else isn't gonna be able to spend that in
Exactly.
2 months, so we'll wait because it's just
Gotcha.
easier and cleaner to be able to reallocate it. And we cannot reallocate more than 25% of what our allocation was without going through the public. Well, no, we have to go through the public process at that point. So if it's 25.5%, I can't just reallocate the 25%. I have to go through the public hearing, to say we have more than 25%. Now it's a substantial amendment. So it gets a little tricky. But that's okay. So some of the changes that they have are every subrecipient is required to submit a quarterly report. That quarterly report will go to the advisory committee and is due within 2 weeks after the end of the quarter. So September 30th would be the end of the quarter. So within the first 2 weeks of October, we would need to receive the quarterly report because it goes before the committee at their next meeting. These reports will help us keep track of timeliness. It will help us keep track of where you are. And it will help us keep track of whether or not your organization should be funded in the future. If you show a history of being unable to spend your funding, it's a little hard for them to continue to say, yeah, we're gonna fund you, because if you don't spend your money, like I said before, it makes you untimely, which makes the city as a whole untimely. All applicants this year, once they get through the vetted process and they are handed off to the advisory committee, each subrecipient will be contacted and you will be asked to come to speak to the committee. And depending on how many people send in applications this year, will determine how many we can have in a meeting. So we're thinking like a 15-20 minute session. So I might get 4 people in on one meeting. But again, on nights like tonight, a lot of the members, the council members, get up and leave and go to another meeting at 6:30. So that might be a night where there's only, say, 3. And there may not be a lot of people that put an application. We've had 50 applications, we've had 10 applications. So it just kind of depends on who we have and how long, because they want you to come before them, and it's a very good idea that you do, because it gives them a better understanding of what your application is about. I mean, obviously they read it, but maybe you have a little bit more to offer in person than what you would put on paper. And they most often have questions. So it's highly recommended, advisable. I don't know how you want to take that as a subrecipient, potential subrecipient, that you would come in to meet with them. The schedule of meetings is like on page 4. This is kind of a rundown of what's going on. So it shows that the applications were made available. Last night was the public hearing. Tonight was the informational session. The next regular meeting for the committee is October 8th. Except for 3 specific weeks, this meeting happens every other Tuesday. You don't have to come to every meeting. Every meeting is open to the public. But like I said, the one that you're invited to is the one that you really should come to. If you have any questions, anytime during the process, contact us. Our information, whether it's email or phone numbers are in the application, feel free to use it. If you have to leave a message, we'll get back to you right away. We are here for your technical support. There's a section where I just kind of explain what the public comment period's about, the plans, what our requirements are for how long public comment period is, how long before we have a meeting that has to be like a public hearing or when a plan is put up on display, or when we have an amendment. So that's all laid out there. Each application needs to have Duns and Bradstreet number. I think they call it something else now, but you can still go on the website that's listed there. If you don't have one of those numbers, you need to get it because it has to be on your application, and if you are selected to receive funding, all of that information gets put into IDIS, and they track you that way also. On the second page of that, we actually have it written out. We walk you through what they're going to ask you for. So if you want to get that information before you log in, I don't know what the time frame is. I know like on our IDIS, if you are dormant for like 5 minutes, you get kicked out of the system and you have to go back in and log in again. But if you do it 3 times in a row, you're done for the day. So you might want to get your information beforehand. And then there is the application itself, which I know can be very daunting. When it's an activity that requires like public services, we do your environmental review for you. Whenever there is an infrastructure, like the city sewers or whatever, they actually have people to do the environmental reviews for them because they are extremely in-depth. And I do not have a degree in environmental reviews or anything that has to do with that. We list for you what eligible and ineligible activities are. Everything is pretty straightforward.
Well, actually, there was a contradiction that I saw, in the sense that the CDBG, the program eligibility from CDBG differs from what the city of Kingston is requiring. The city of Kingston is requiring just program.
The city of Kingston only, I'm not sure if that means somebody is here. I'm just trying to see if somebody else popped up that I didn't get in here. No, the city of Kingston is only accepting applications for public service programming from subrecipients. The rest of the funding is infrastructure, the city of Kingston uses.
Okay, so for instance, public facilities and improvements. So if I had a community center, would that fall under public facilities?
If it's the city of Kingston.
If it's owned by the city of
Yes.
Kingston? Okay.
They changed that several years ago.
Right.
Where they decided, there are some municipalities that do not share their CDBG funding with anybody. They keep it for the municipality themselves. But the city of Kingston, really wants to be able to help the community and through public services, help fund those activities. The unfortunate thing is HUD only allows 15% of the maximum, actually 15% is the maximum amount that can be used for public services. So that's not our guideline, that's a HUD mandated guideline. Only 20% is used toward administration, and the rest of it is what's used for public facilities or infrastructure.
So for instance, public service, and it reads here, CDBG may provide public service including but not limited to childcare, healthcare, job training, recreation, education, public safety, senior services. So that those can be carried out by a not-for-profit.
So YMCA, they have a seniors, Strength for Seniors program.
Right.
So we fund that.
Okay, so. Okay, got it. So that would be the distinction between public facilities and public service. So the public in this case is not the same. Public facilities and
Yeah.
public service.
Yeah.
Okay, once the city.
It's still public, it's just, yes, it's just one is the facilities and one is the
Which is
program.
why I was under the impression
Yeah.
that, okay.
And this required checklist. And then there's a part where we asked about previous funding from CDBG. I have had a few people that have said that they've either had it or haven't had it. And I've been here 19 years, so I'm pretty sure I'm gonna know if you've had it or you haven't had it. And, you know, we do ask, were you able to, did you have any difficulty spending it, or were you able to spend it in town cash? And again, I've been here 19 years, so I don't know what that answer is, but the answer is really for the committee, so they have a better understanding of whether or not the subrecipient has an understanding of what the program is. I think lots of it is, I mean, I think it's pretty much easy to walk through, but if.
But you said
Any-
19.
Well, yeah, I mean, I see that, but yeah, I mean, and it took upwards of 19 years to learn as much as I did about that, because it's constantly changing, and there's always something else that's coming up, and, you know, tons of reporting, and so, I would love to answer any questions that anybody has, if, Jeannie, if you have anything, chime in. I can't see you, but.
I told you the picture, my picture keeps coming upside down. So I don't want to make everybody dizzy with it. I don't know why that's happening, but no, I'm listening. This is pretty much standard compared to what last year, you know?
And I see Michelle's here now.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm late.
That's all right. I didn't know, I just ran through the application and the matrix code and the national objectives for everybody. I explained what the new expectations are for this year with the process that the committee had come up with. And I think so far we're doing okay.
Okay. I have a question. It was just approached today. I probably know the answer already, but so say like a community, a street, for example, wanted to apply for sidewalk improvement. Could they do that on their own?
Well, the city would have to do it because this.
Right, yeah.
City does infrastructure and capital improvements. But if it was on, like, say, engineering's radar and engineering had put the application in, then it would be considered.
Right, that's what I figured. Okay, thank you.
Sorry. Okay. Anybody have questions? Yes. I'm gonna turn the light on because I feel like it's getting dark and I'm not gonna see anybody soon.
I was just wondering about an appropriate size of funding to request, and is it tied to the size of the organization? So ours is mostly volunteers right now, so our budget is only about 100, about 100,000 a year, you know, so would it be only a percentage of that we could request? Or?
So typically, we have between 72 and 90,000. That's the 15% of what we can allocate. You can ask for whatever you want, but what you get, I don't know.
Yeah, but is there like a reasonable amount for like a first time?
Well, I think it would depend on how many people you have and what your activity is.
Okay.
Because then within here, it explains you have to basically justify for the amount of money per student that you're asking for. Does that kind of help?
Thank you so much. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Wait, so you have 15% of that range to allocate?
Yes. So say, last year we got $683,000. So 15% of that is what we were able to allocate for public services, which is the programming.
Oh, okay.
And like I said, we don't make that decision. HUD mandates that 15% is the max and 20% is the max for admin.
Okay.
And then the rest of it gets used for infrastructure, public facilities.
In the eligibility activities, it does mention rehabilitation and reconstruction.
That's telling you what CDBG funds are allowed to be used for.
That's applying for City.
But the city of Kingston is saying that they are only
Their
allowing
priorities. They have the,
Yes, there's, so as their
they have the
priorities,
jurisdiction to say,
Yes.
we want to go in this area, so you're telling us programming.
yes,
Okay.
yes, the city has decided that it's programming only that they fund outside of the city of Kingston.
Mhm.
And they've been, in the last few years, they've been using the infrastructure for either parks or the sewers.
So, yeah, that kind of like got to my earlier question, and now I see again under section 570.2 of the special economic development activities, activities, let's see. CDBG funds may be used for special economic development activities carried out by public agencies, nonprofit organizations. and private-
So a CDBO
Yes,
has to be determined, and it has to be approved by one, the mayor, two, HUD. And then that changes the way funding is allocated also.
but you see how confusing that is, because if I'm just reading this,
It's hard.
it seems like those activities are eligible.
They're all eligible. Everything you see here is eligible.
Yes,
It's just a matter of,
but Kingston has prioritized
Yes.
program.
yes.
Yeah. And as far as the timeline goes, I see here all the deliberations.
When you see TBD,
Yeah, it looks like somewhere late spring is when there's a determination.
so,
But we may not get word until this is activated.
so I'm hopeful every year,
Yeah,
that I always have the annual action plan, or I shouldn't say I always, since I've been in this position, I have made sure that the annual action plan is written and uploaded to HUD before June. If I can help it, it's done in May. But it's usually not till January, February, March that the committee is actually even ready to have a conversation about who they think should be funded. So I started this process earlier this year. It doesn't usually start until, I started about a month early. Normally the applications don't go out till the middle of October.
Yeah.
And then meetings don't start until November.
Yeah.
But I don't want to wait that long because I know that HUD has anywhere from 45 to 60 days to review our annual action plan once it's submitted. So I want to get it done as soon as possible, so it's in their hands. So,
so
come
everyone's interested.
July 1st, I can say, you're not waiting for us, we've been waiting for you.
Yeah.
And it's worked out in my favor as far as, getting the information to them, having it uploaded. Because it's not just a matter of me telling them after it's decided who's going to be funded. I have to write the annual action plan, I have to have another public hearing, I have to have another 30-day public comment period. And then it gets uploaded.
And the actual amount, are there instances where a nonprofit would be approved in its basic, concept of merit, but the number might be somewhere that the city can't meet, but they'll say, we like this, and it comes down? Or should we be very cognizant of the amount that's asked because it's make or break on that number?
Well, I wouldn't say it's make or break, but it depends on how many applications are. They get put in a difficult position because, and I think Michelle and Jeannie could speak to this, if there's a lot of applications that come in, and they all look good, they can't possibly fund everybody. And the rule of thumb with HUD is, you can't pick and choose what part of somebody's activity you want to fund. Obviously, if you ask for 20,000 and tell me you can't run it for less than 20,000, for me to say, hey, I'm gonna give you 10, well, chances are you're not gonna be able to run your program, or you're gonna have to cut it in half. You know what I mean? Like if you're asking 20 because that's what you need to run it, you're only gonna be able to run it on half of that, so you're not gonna be able to take care of all of the people that would have been part of that program. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it sounds like ideally you want to fully fund what's being presented, but there may be situations where the way it's worded, you could award at a lower level.
I mean, occasionally, we can fund everybody as is. Sometimes we have to say, okay, look, you asked for 25, we can't do 25, we could do 22. which is better than 10. But then, it's one of those things where that's when you have to say, okay, I think I can do this, and then you have to try to figure it out, but you don't wanna just say, yes, you can, and then come back later and say, I couldn't.
Mhm.
You know, that's where I'm going with that if you can't actually spend the money, or you can actually do the program, that you really need to let us know and think about that. There's also been times when we guesstimate, so every year I put in here like 650, we guesstimate we're gonna get 650. This year we got a little over 700. So we were able to, increase everybody within that 15% that we're allowed to allocate towards public services. We were able to bump everybody up, either give everybody exactly what they asked for, or somebody, might have gotten across the board an extra 1,000. We've also had less money. We thought that we were gonna get a certain amount of money, and they come back to us and say, you're getting $30,000 less than what you were. Well, that 30,000 is, right off the top, so that affects everybody. That 30,000 affects administration, it affects the public services, it affects the infrastructure.
So the whole pot that's in play for us as applicants feels like it's about 100?
Roughly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell. I know it's kind of hard to tell. Well, it's hard to tell too, because there's only 3 of you right now, so you might go, oh, there's only 3 of us who are after this. But there's probably 12 people who aren't coming to this meeting because they've come to the before. So.
They're ineligible.
I don't know if I can
No,
explain that.
everybody has to take a swing, yeah.
And, occasionally there are activities that are not eligible at all. And we've had to either disqualify them because they weren't eligible, or an activity might not fall within the realm of what the 5-year comp plan has deemed being one of the priorities.
Yeah, is there a list of previously funded projects that we could look at just to see what kind are the most appealing?
Well, it's not about appealing to us, but what you can do is on the city's website, if you go to the community development page, on the right-hand side, you'll see, I can't pull it up here or I'll lose everybody, but on the right-hand side, you'll see where it says,
Prior was.
annual action plans and consolidated plans. You can flip through there, and it's called AP 35. I don't know what page it is. It changes from year to year depending on how much is written into the plan. The AP 35 are the projects and activities that were selected and funded. So you'll see who it is, what they did, and how much they were funded for.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just, there's several different activities that are eligible. I was just wondering, how would we determine which ones might be the most competitive? I mean, we wouldn't be able to ask them, right? We would just kind of be able to look at.
Well, it's everybody's competitive.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't say that one's more competitive over another.
Yeah.
Like I said, we have had several applicants that come back year after year who, some have been very successful with coming up with new activities, new programming, or significantly increasing. We've had a few that come back every year who we don't really see a change, but even though we say, hey, you need to have a significant change, they still come back. And it's not up to me.
Yeah.
It's the committee makes their decisions, their recommendations, those get forwarded to the mayor. At the end of the day, it's the mayor who makes the decision. And he takes, what they have to say in under advisement, and then he sits down and mulls it through, and he decides what's gonna happen, and then I find out and I share that with everybody else. Would that be accurate? Did I lose these two? Oh, Michelle's still there. I don't know where.
So it kind of feels like there's 8 to 10 applicants hypothetically.
I'm still here.
Oh, okay. We had,
And on average, it feels like 10 to 12 is kind of if the city was motivated to fund all of those 8 to 10 that are qualified, have merit, and pass the deliberation test, we want to be thinking about that number.
This year,
Because, well, unless it's one or two that put in for 50 and two projects get funded at 50 versus 10 at 10.
this year, just programming, we had 10 applicants that were funded. Some as little as 2,500, some as much as 22.
That feels like the range, yeah, on average, so 10 would be kind of like right down
I
the,
mean, so, really, I can't say what you should or shouldn't.
Yeah, but
It's just
just
what you,
we don't want to be doing the moonshot of 100 if it feels, yeah.
yeah. You don't want to risk, I mean, if you don't, I say be realistic. I mean, if you know that you can do it between, say, 10 and 12,
Yeah,
then
which was your question,
Yeah.
what's
Then
kind
be
of the
realistic.
natural
Or
zone?
if it's really 25 to 35, and that's realistic for you. I mean, that's just, you just have to be cognizant of that, where, like I said, they will say, so this is, I'm saying you should write it right from the get-go, be like, okay, this is exactly what we need. Because then there isn't any question about, well, you asked for 50, can you do it for, I'm just gonna say 20. I'm not saying you get cut that much. But then, being realistic, they would already know that you can't do it for that little money, so then it's either, okay, we don't fund it, or we figure out a way to fund it. And, again, it comes down to, we're supposed to be using it for seed money, not doing it the same thing every year.
Mhm.
So having new activities coming in, helps us stay on board with what we're supposed to be doing. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay. Cheryl looks like she's got something she wants to say.
No.
She's just mulling it over.
I'm just thinking of a prior recipient, and they had asked for, let's say, and kitchen improvements,
Mhm.
like a commercial stove or whatever, and it was for a particular program.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering if that is the same kind of thing now, where you will pay for capital, also like capital equipment.
I'm trying to think about the year. I think I know who you're talking about. We've done that for a few different ones, but that was several years ago.
Okay, so that's no longer the case now. So if I wanted to,
I'd venture to say that's gonna go with capital improvement, because when you're putting in
right,
commercial
capital,
kitchen,
yeah.
that's we haven't done, I know for a fact for the last 4, maybe 5 years, we haven't done anything on that level.
Okay. And I would have to prove, if it's, obviously it has to be programming, so a significant improvement or expansion of a program would have to be, what, 25% or more?
Yeah,
In terms of people served?
if they've come to us already
Yes,
and they've had a program,
yes,
let's just say you did a seniors computer program.
Right.
And you had 15 people last year.
Right.
But you want to offer it again this year because you had a list of people that exceeded the 15, but you could only take 15 on.
Right.
And now you can do 30.
So it's not
You're
too-
doubling it, so,
okay,
but you have to have, you're doubling it, well, 25%, you would only need, what, if you had, what did I say, 15, and now you have 30,
yeah.
well, that's 50%.
You know, I thought I read somewhere where in order to prove substantial or expansion of the program, it would have to exceed, the participants would have to exceed 25%? Is that
You have to have at least 25% more.
more people?
Yeah,
Okay,
but if
so-
you had 15, now you're going to 30, now you've got 50% more people.
Yeah, right.
So you've exceeded that 25%.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
But at the very least, we have to hit
Yes,
the 25%.
yes. Because otherwise we're just funding the same
Right.
activity.
I'm sorry, Mandy, and maybe I missed it in the application, but is this a reimbursement grant
Yes, you have to spend it first and then you get reimbursed.
at the very end? Or-
No, you can do it on a quarterly basis or, every 3 weeks, whatever's easiest for you. Because that helps us with the expenditures too, because what other people don't see what I do, from the administration side is I'm constantly on IDIS, which is their reporting system. And if you go 6 months and you don't ask for a reimbursement request, now I go on IDIS and you have a red flag. And now HUD wants to know why you haven't asked for anything for 6 months. Some people wait till the end, and I do not encourage that at all. Because one, it really messes with timeliness. Two, in HUD's eyes, it looks like you don't really need to have the funding because you haven't sought reimbursement.
Yeah.
It's really kind of amazing how much they can see.
Yeah, yeah.
Because they're on the same thing that I am, but they can go in any day and be like, oh, I see you had 5 drawdowns today, or you've had no drawdowns in 3 months. I mean, so they know, and then they contact you, and then I have to come up with what are called remediations and explain why you didn't draw down for 6 months, after I contact you, say, why didn't you draw down?
Oh, right.
But yeah, so if, I prefer as many,
Regular.
as often as you can.
And would you do it directly with HUD, like on like EGMS Reach or something, or would you be doing through the city of Kingston, like the reimbursement?
Oh, everything comes right through my office.
Okay, that's great.
So with my office, it's usually within a week. The day you hand in your reimbursement, within a week, you'll get your money back.
That's awesome.
I might be able to do it sooner, it depends on the time of the week. If it's on a Thursday, I won't get the money until Monday. But then I have to go for signatures, I can get the mayor's signature, I can get the comptroller's signature. But it's usually a 3-day in, 3-day out, so within a week, you should be able to be reimbursed. It's really quick.
Yeah.
When it comes time for reimbursement, Amy in my office sits down with everybody and says, hey, look, or actually, when you come in to sign your agreement, she'll sit down with you and she'll say, okay, if you're reimbursing payroll, this is what you need to provide us. If you're reimbursing for materials, this is what you need to provide us. So she's got it down pat with a list. I tell everybody she's my little terrier. I send, and I'm not being rude, she's my little terrier. I send her right after you for the paperwork or whatever else that didn't come in. Because we can't give you that check until we have everything that we need. Because at the end of the day, we have to report to HUD. So there will also be what's called the client data sheet at the end that you need to keep track of. It's usually for LMI, low moderate income, moderate income, and then they keep track of, ethnicity. Just so they can kind of see, the population of people that are being served.
Program, is it advisable that the focus of budget expenditures be on material program development versus some personnel costs, or is it okay to have?
You can have personnel costs too. It's just a little harder when you're doing all personnel costs, because that's really more administration. And like I said, we're only allowed to have 20% administration. That's how I get paid.
Yeah.
But, you're certainly, to run a program, you have to have, you're not there for, I don't know if you are or not, but I'm just saying,
Feels like it.
let's just say let's just say the director down there and you're on payroll, you don't want to, you want to get reimbursed for your time, so yeah. So we're very specific about what we need as far as time tracking, copies of paychecks, payroll, whatever, to get reimbursed. But, we'll lay all that out for you when the time comes after everybody's been determined whether or not there's a recipient. You have no questions?
I have,
Do you have any questions?
yes, but I've been reading through it. And I have journal.
Well, I'm serious though, anytime you have any questions, call the office or email us. I mean, we're happy to meet with you one-on-one, answer any questions that you have.
What's your email address?
BRUCK at Kingston, HMY.gov.
Just so that so this is not for new programming. If in fact well, then how do you prove that you're going to increase your?
It's only if you're coming back for a second round.
I'm sorry.
It's only if you're coming back. So if you, like I said
Oh.
before, say you're doing the senior computer, whatever.
But let's
okay?
say that's a new program.
You're good. Now, if you come back next year and you want to do that same program, you have to increase the people that you're serving by 25%.
Okay, so not that the program has to have grown from the previous, like say it's a program that you've run before.
We would like to see new programs every year.
Okay,
Oh, see,
But,
okay.
but you have a program that's working and you're substantially increasing the amount of people that you're serving.
Mhm. And it's new to this. That was what I was like, because, you know, we've been going on.
Okay, so the one that we fund every year is Read and Write.
Mhm.
Okay. In order for her to continue to be funded, she has to substantially increase the amount of people that are being served. I mean, her program is specifically to read and write, it's to teach the kids to read and to write. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you have a benchmark in that case. I'm talking about a new program altogether, which, so it
programs
starts
are our
from
favorite.
0 and you automatically increase to 100% if you have anybody, right, a person.
It should be a new program every year that somebody comes to apply, it should be for a new program. But there are some programs, like Read and Write, and I'm just
So the
saying
preferences.
that, you know, she has to increase
Right.
by 25% of the amount of people that she's serving. Because it's basically the same activity, but, you know, Boys and Girls Club every year, they're very good about coming up with a new activity. They don't get funded for the same activity. They always come up with a new one. And it's not to say you can't come up with more than 2 activities. It's possible to be one organization to be funded for 2 different activities. It's happened before. Ooh, it's so quiet.
I think we're good.
Michelle, Jeannie, do you guys have anything?
I'm good.
Okay,
Sorry, I'm a little slow with the buttons here.
that's okay. I just want to make sure I'm not ignoring anybody.
No, thanks.
Okay, I'm sorry. Your question?
Are applications bolstered if they're working in a community, possibly not directly collaboratively, but in support of, and they know it's another applicant? You don't do combos.
Like a collaboration
Yes.
between 2 not-for-profits.
You could.
You can. Okay.
I'm not saying anything's out of the realm. I mean, you know, we like to see, we actually like to see when we don't have 5 different organizations coming in who want to do the same exact thing. Because now it's kind of pulling away from, it's like, you don't want to say, oh, well, they'll fund this one, but this one's really good too. It does the same thing. You know, we don't want to do that. We would rather see that people are collaborating. That's it.
Hey, sorry, it's Michelle. I've got to jump off. I just realized I'm late for my other meeting.
Yep, okay, thanks.
Okay,
Michelle.
bye.
Yeah, and I got 3 minutes to make that.
So that's what I mean, so this every other week for us, it's the 4th Tuesday of the month for that committee, so those people are, I shouldn't say those people, those aldermen and alderwomen sit on that committee too, so they have to leave my meeting to go there,
Right.
so,
Built-in kind of, yeah.
but only on the 4th Tuesday of the month, otherwise, I'm good to go.
Yeah.
And thanks for coming.
Thank you, Amanda.
So, if you guys have to leave, maybe she does.
Yeah.
But if you don't have any other questions, then I'll just end this.
Okay.
There's a chat, I'm sorry. Okay. I will, if you guys are good, I'll end this. Okay, maybe I will, maybe I won't.
Let you go.
Well, okay, we're gonna stop. We'll call the meeting over, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.